right. I'm going to show you what Yeli is good at. In this case, I'm actually going to have to buff Mio to get her above the threshold to slow all these guys down. Usually I like to buff Yeli, but she's very low on, very low on speed. So, Yeli practically is very good for just doing this. Yeah. That is what Yeli does. Yeli is a one-shot burster for PvP. Now, don't get me wrong. She has got a good single target. She certainly can hold her own in single target DPS. However, there is an SR Animus that does that 10 times better, and that is just Diting. So she's a little bit of a jack of all trades in the sense that she's got great AoE burst, actually maybe one of the best AoE bursts in the game, and has pretty good single target. She has the added bonus of being a debuffer in the sense that she steals buffs. Now, the debuff percentage is much lower than your traditional debuffers because she steals the buff, which is obviously more valuable. And that means that she doesn't really fulfill that role particularly well either. Her upsides are, she has very strong upsides. She steals buffs. She reduces defense on ultimate. She gets a natural 100% crit rate by giving herself a 30% crit buff. However, she needs a lot of resources to get there, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So if you want a kind of a verdict analysis in the very start of this video, Yeli is good. Oh my god, I thought that was my baby, but it's a bloody bird. You guys probably couldn't hear that. It was going like, and I was like, oh my god, my baby's just woken up. She basically doesn't fill a role. She doesn't fill a debuff role because her debuff is not consistent enough. She's outclassed in single target compared to Diting, and her AoE is comparable to someone like Messiah, and Messiah grants himself an immunity buff and ignores 70% of the defense when you upgrade it anyway. So, she's okay. She's pretty good. I would save you the bother of going for her banner without going into detail in this video too much. She is okay, but her upsides are insane if you can build her properly. And that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to look at how to build her properly to kind of get the most out of a very expensive Animus to get. I wanted to do a video on Yeli. I didn't want to do a video on the day of her release because, frankly, I wanted to spend a bit of time getting used to her, like understanding what she does, where does she fit. Annoyingly, this is so funny, I hit pity on Yeli. Now, for anybody that knows how hard the yellow pulling like CD things are to get, you're going to know that was expensive, hitting pity on Yeli. But no freaking joke, I'm not joking, 2 sets of permanent pulls, I got 2 more Yelis. And actually, I will say, whilst we joke about, dupes being not super impactful, there is one dupe that is really nice to have, and that's the increased crit rate. So if you get 2 versions of Yeli, having the increased crit rate is actually a pretty big deal, and I'm going to go into why. But let's talk a little bit about Yeli first. I'm still working my way up through the prowess, by the way. You want to get to level 4 on this, if you can, because it increases the damage multiplier to 240%, which is going to obviously increase her damage massively. But I'm going to talk about her skills first and foremost. Then we'll talk about how to build her, what you should be focusing on, all that kind of good stuff. Now, Yeli. What is Yeli's role? She is a DPS nuker. She has kind of a sideline as a debuffer. In fact, she's better than a debuffer. She steals buffs. So if you can get her to steal enemy buffs, that makes her even more powerful. So she's kind of like a nuker DPS role. Really good AoE, but also very, very good single target. And she has the ability to steal buffs. That's basically kind of the core of her kit. What Yeli works around is her passive, which as you can see, I've upgraded to level 5. After landing a crit with an active skill, Yeli has a 100% chance to additionally cast Arrow Spark 1 time on the main target. After each casting, the chance of re-triggering the next cast reduces to 60% of the current chance. So this starts out at 75%, which is why you need to upgrade it to the max level. The majority of Yeli's DPS comes from the ability to re-trigger her basic attack over and over again. So the higher you make it, the better it's going to be overall. And as you can see, her crit rate, you also get an extra 12% crit rate by upgrading this, which is very useful. And again, I'm going to talk about that why in a minute. Her ultimate skill. Essentially, she fires 3 hits of 100% damage at everybody. She grants herself a 2-turn critical, 30% critical strike rate increase buff, and has a 50% chance to inflict a 2-turn defense decrease. And she also purifies 2 debuffs from herself, which is really nice as well, by the way. Having this is super nice. Purifying debuffs from yourself is fantastic. In terms of leveling this up, speed is not actually that important on Yeli. Obviously, speed is great on all characters, but frankly, like if you're going to run Yeli, you're usually going to run her like you would Messiah and run her with Lily if you can, but obviously speed is always nice to have. I'm currently haven't farmed enough to get the HP increases, which I do need to do. Damage increase on this is nice. Purifying can dispel all debuffs. Now frankly, there's not going to be that many situations where you have like more than 2 debuffs, but in certain boss fights this could be pretty good. Damage multiplied to 120%, but most importantly reduces skill cooldown by 1 turn, because that means you can maintain a 30% crit rate pretty much forever. And also it means when pairing her with Lily, Lily will automatically reset this, so you have the ability to fire this off basically in succession. So that is a pretty important one to get, but it is less important than getting her S2 to rank 5, because this is the one that guarantees you the damage. You then have her Arrow Spark. Basically, single target, 220% damage, though starts at 200, and a 15% chance to steal 1 buff. You want to level this up all the way up to level 4 if you can. There is no need to push to... I mean, obviously getting the 10% attack is pretty nice, so I would get that. But there's not a massive need to push to this unless you really want to hone in on that buff stealing. I will say Yeli is a character that, frankly, you need to max her to really see her absolute true potential. But if you do max her, she's got to be one of the best damage carries in the entire game. But yeah, you would go to level 4, probably get the 10% attack off the back of that. And then you would start maxing her S3. So you want to get her S3. And really, you do want to try and get the skill cooldown reduced by 1 turn, because that's a really big deal. Especially if you're sort of rotating her in PvP. But frankly, for the most part, you'll often find that her first salvo is going to do a lot of damage. It's a little like Messiah, where his first hit does a lot of damage. Now, speaking of Messiah, what role does Yeli fill? Well, she kind of fills the Messiah role. She does something very similarly to Messiah. Messiah has burst damage, where he actually ignores passives and defenses, so this is pretty good at dealing with people who have got like revive passives. He also obviously applies invincibility to himself. However, he does 2 hits of 180% when maxed. So he does basically similar to Yeli, where she'll do like just over 300%. He'll do just over 300% as well. But he will ignore the target's passive and will also ignore defense down to 70%, which is a pretty big deal. He has a single target burst, which is usually the best thing to level up second. And then he has another single target, not burst, but just damage. And he also can gain invincibility when he defeats them with this as well. So like essentially, Yeli kind of fills the same role. She is an AoE DPS nuker. She's very much an opener in PvP. So you're going to open with Yeli, focusing on the target that you want to focus on. And she'll then follow up with her passive as well, because you're going to have her at 100% crit rate, which we'll talk about when we talk about the modules. So that's kind of how we want to focus on Yeli. She fills a very similar role. She is not... It's very interesting. She can be as decent as Diting in terms of single target damage. I mean, Diting's, you're never going to really beat out Diting. Like he has the crit damage modifier. He has 450% damage. Like Diting's always going to be your single target nuker, but she does have the ability to deal somewhat similar damage, especially if she gets pretty lucky on her passives. However, much more resource needed to go into Yeli to get her anywhere close to Diting. So Diting is going to like always be your single target nuker. And so frankly, like Yeli's not going to replace him. She's actually a good complement to Diting. So Diting likes to run with another DPS a lot of the time. Like Yeli is a pretty good complementary DTS to Diting, because they both have good single targets so they can focus down. But Yeli also additionally has pretty good AoE, which obviously Diting does not have. Okay, talking about shells. So Revelation is kind of the go-to shell on Diting. The reason being is that each crit hit dealt by the Animus this turn deals an additional real damage equal to 10% of the target's max HP. The total damage dealt per hit cannot exceed 150% of your self-attack. So if obviously looking at my attack, I've got 3,000 and so can't deal more than like, what, 4,500 in true damage, but that's an extra 4,500 that's going to provide on an opening turn of practically anything. And given she's a 3-hit opener on her ultimate, that's a lot of damage. In terms of, and we'll talk a little bit about what you're looking for here in a moment. Just so you know, I do not have the best setup here. Fury is the best 8 setup because it lands a crit, increasing the damage of that crit. Keen Eye is not the best. Actually going for straight Onslaught is good because you're going to increase your max attack by quite a significant amount. That works quite nicely with Revelation. But Keen Eye is okay. Momentum is good, but frankly, I find it difficult. Momentum is one of those... like really good for PvE, but I find with Momentum, if you are using Lily in PvP and you're going to then immediately use it on Yeli, you're not going to get the value out of Momentum. So I actually quite like Keen Eye or Onslaught for that reason. But obviously the first 3 instances of damage dealt by Animus is during this turn increased by 25%, 15%, and 25% respectively. Now that's not too bad, but when you're using a multi-hit passive, you're obviously going to get diminishing returns from that. Sorry if I'm sounding a bit sniffy, by the way. I absolutely have COVID, and I haven't really got like a bad illness. I've just got a very sore throat and I am sniffy, like just so much snot. It's awful. In terms of Shell, you want to get the attack boost increase, the percentage attack boost increase. This is, the second slot is up for negotiation and it really depends on what you've got. This is why I said her prowess, getting the 8% increase crit is actually pretty important. Now, what you can do, and I think the optimal way to do this is if you can achieve 70% critical strike rate, so a flat 70% critical strike rate on her, without the need for modules, specifically modules that give you critical strike rate, you are going to be doing the maximum burst damage possible, which is going to make her very, very good for PvE. It also means that any crits that you do are going to be insane damage, okay? However, this could be any one of 3. This could be speed, if you care about her speed. If you're not running her with Lily, obviously having higher speed is better. It could be crit damage, which obviously is going to increase your critical strike damage by a nice amount. And obviously in our case, we're going for crit rate. I needed the red crit. I invested so much resource to get the red crit rate here, because if I didn't have it, I wouldn't have 70% crit. And this should, I mean, if you can get constant Animus final damage dealt, great. If you can just get, final damage dealt, also great. You can look at her details, right? So I have got 71% base crit. Why is that important? Well, you get a self buff of 30% on her ultimate, which then grants you 100% crit rate. You will not trigger her passive unless you crit, so you need 100% crit rate. I have 304% critical strike damage on Yeli, and I also have a bunch of attack as well. I'm very glass cannon. You can see that I really don't have much HP, so I die very, very easily, but that's kind of what Yeli is. She is a glass cannon. She doesn't have the benefit of, I mean, my Messiah's got way too much HP, but she doesn't have the benefit of Messiah. I really need to get this guy's critical strike damage up. I've actually neglected my boy Messiah for so long. I haven't really given him the love and attention that he needs to get the right kind of gear on. He's also running with White Fang, which if you're going to use, you really want to use Revelation, because again, he's a very burst heavy champion, and he's not exactly great at long form fights. Anyway, I'm chatting some rubbish. Like, Messiah needs more critical strike damage, but anyway, we're going to go back to Yeli. So she's insane at the moment. She's got 304% critical strike damage, and she's got 70% crit, so she's going to get a 30% boost from her ultimate, which gives me 100%, and then basically guarantees that I'm triggering my passive on every single attack. My effect accuracy is pretty low. The only effect accuracy impacts is how likely you are to inflict a 2-turn defense decrease, but also I think it can impact how likely you are to steal a buff. So having some effect accuracy is pretty nice on Yeli, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Module-wise, now I talked a little bit about Keen Eye, Momentum. Like, obviously in my eyes, Fury and Onslaught are probably the best. The types of stats that you're looking for: crit damage, crit rate, attack bonus, and speed. So I've got the perfect helm. Like, quite frankly, I've got the perfect helm. The only thing that would help this is if I had more. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'll show you an example. If you get a level 1 helmet and it looks like this, that's amazing. This means that every time that you reach a threshold where you would either add, so like on this one, when you reach the thresholds, you will add a new passive. Instead of adding a new passive, it's going to upgrade a passive. So if you start with 4 and you upgrade to 15, you're getting the maximum amount of upgrades you can physically get. In this case, I don't think I got that. I think I had to unlock a couple of extras, but still a really, really good helmet for her. This one's not great. So effect res is meh. But actually, it's crit damage, attack, and attack rate. Obviously, a percentage attack would have been better, but this is not bad. I'd like to probably change it down the line if I can find one with sort of slightly higher base, like slightly higher bases, but I'm not very good at farming Fury at the moment, so I'm kind of going with what I can get. Key Knight, so we've got crit rate, effect accuracy, speed, and attack. Not too bad stats. Crit damage would have been nice. Percentage attack would have been nice, but I'll take a little bit of effect accuracy. It's never a bad thing. Have a look at what else I've got here. I've got nothing too crazy. That would maybe be all right. But again, like I'm not in a rush to replace that. That's pretty solid. Crit damage, speed, effect accuracy, effect res, crit rate. Effect accuracy is okay. Effect res is kind of the annoying one that got upgraded a few times here. Would have been better if it was crit rate. But actually, I hit 70% anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Attack bonus. Now, this could also be crit rate. Crit damage, but attack bonus is also nice. Crit rate, crit damage, HP bonus, and defense. So a little bit of HP bonus and defense. Nice to have some defensive stuff in there, but again, effect accuracy, attack increase would have been fine. And then crit damage again, HP bonus, speed, crit rate, crit damage again would have been good, but again, a nice little bit of speed from that one. So, you're looking for crit damage, you're looking for crit rate until you hit the 70% cap, you're looking for attack percentage increase, and speed, which is also quite nice. Those are the main stats that you're looking for as substats on your items. And I've already talked about the sets that you're going to be looking for in this situation. So we've looked at her prowesses, we've looked at the shells, we've looked at the module. Obviously, if you can get a shell, I mean, I'm not doing Inferno very consistently at the moment, but if you can get a shell with Fury Edge, obviously Fury Edge is like an extra 6 would be amazing. That's kind of how you cap her out. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. So, all right, let's jump into some PvP, and I need to find someone that... Okay, this guy is Lily. I mean, it's difficult to say. I don't know how quick this guy's Lily is going to be. This guy's just running a Freya, so there is the hope that I can beat that. Now, the one thing about my Yeli is she's not that quick. Do you know what? I actually prefer running Kloss over Valerian in like an offensive fight. Okay, so my Mio's pretty quick here, so that means I can just go straight and use Yeli. And we're going to use this just to get my turn meters down. Okay, so here we go. Going to use it on this guy. Look at the damage I do. Oh my god, just basically one-shot the whole team. In this situation, I might even just steal their turn meter. And then I'm going to go take out the only other major threat, which is Hoyan. And then we are going to freeze Valerian. And, well, we don't even need to. We just shoot her. 10,000 with a single basic attack, by the way. Pretty strong. Do I think I'm going to beat this guy? This is difficult, you see. That Lily's only level 40. Sometimes that tells you a little bit about the gear they might have. I don't know. Depends on how quick their Kloss is. Okay, so their Kloss is quicker than some. I know that my Yeli is not going to get above their Kloss in this situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to speed up Mio. And I'm going to steal the turn meter. Which puts her above. And actually this works out quite nicely. Because then I can debuff everyone. And then this now means that I can use Yeli. And bonk him. And then we proc the Valerian, which puts us in a situation where we can then use the follow-up attack to get the kill. And don't want their Lily to go, so we'll do that. Although I actually completely forgot. Annoyingly, obviously don't have Twin Trick on my... I don't have Twin Trick on my Yeli, so therefore that's not going to work out. But it is what it is. We're good. We're good. I don't know what I did, but we'll try again. I actually don't know what I did there. That was pretty grim. Right, we're going to use this. We are then not going to use the ultimate. Let's see how many hits we get. Can we get 2 again? So it's going to replay the same thing. Debuff. And I always remember, so this is the increased defense. No, I want to increase my attack. I don't know why I'm doing the defense one. Let's increase my attack. Actually, would have been... I might have to try this again with... what's his face, to be fair. So let's do this. Hit. That's a nice hit. Let's steal the turn meter. And then let's actually use the ultimate this time round. Dang, 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 and bonk. So we did that in 26, so slightly slower than Diting, which you can see. Obviously, Diting is powerful. Let's try again. Let's do it let's do it this time with Diting. We're actually using the proper move set, so we're going to get rid of this. And I will say, my Diting is like, he's not insane. He needs way more critical strike damage. He's not really, really well built at the moment. So we can actually use the ultimate with Diting now. Donk, donk, donk. He's also not using Revelation, which is massively, massively decreasing his damage potential. So if I wanted to be really true, I would have used Revelation. And then frankly, my Diting and my I would say Diting is generally worse built than my Yeli. Let's do this. Turn meter, and I think, frankly, I think Diting's just going to one-shot it from here. Yeah, I mean, that was insane. So, like, Diting's still the better boss killer. Even though it was slower, he's still the better boss killer by a mile. So, and he's not built very well. I need to get way more Revelations. I need to do way more Hoyon farming to be able to get Revelations. But, yeah, it's... Diting's still the better boss killer overall. But... like I said, she has that AoE potential. I actually want to try and use her more in Doki Doki. I feel like she could be way more effective in Doki Doki. Right, actually, to be honest with you, right now I need to start building my Messiah to be way more effective in Doki Doki because he's still really slow. But I think my Yeli could be pretty good in that situation. But she is very, very good in PvP. She's just a bit slow at the moment, so I need to start working on getting a better Mio and a better Lily because she's a little slower than some of my counterparts. But nonetheless, still pretty solid, like a solid investment. But is it worth it to build Yeli based on like PvE potential? And so that's the question. Is it worth it to get Yeli from the Rate Up banner? And if you want my genuine opinion, probably not. I think she is a very, very cool character. And I think once you fully max her out, her potential becomes very high, but she's a very high resource cost to get to that point. And really the only benefit of her over something like Messiah is that she has the ability to steal buffs, but you have to max Arrow Spark to really see the true value in that. And in reality, if you want to build her the way that you ideally should, she's going to be really squishy. Her speed is not going to be great. Like, obviously, you really want to ideally have speed on most of these. Like, this would be good if I had a higher speed value on it. This would be good if I had speed on it. This would be good if his speed was slightly higher. But if I was gonna increase her potential, I'd probably try and look for a speed Kenai here. That speed's okay. That speed's meh. I'd probably look for a slightly higher speed on my Kenai ring. I'd probably look for a slightly higher speed on this just to get her slightly faster. But in reality, like, she's not better single target than Diting. She's a good kind of like complement to Diting, I guess, because they both have high single target damage, so they can burst down targets if you're going to run 2 DPS with a Diting. She's not that much better than Messiah. I mean, my Messiah is built terribly. I need to solve the Messiah. I just need to get a Revelation for him. But my Messiah is better. Like, he has immunity. He can compensate for low HP by having the immunity. And so in reality, like, she's okay. She's decent. She's not amazing. And frankly, I don't think she's better than a lot of the other options. So yeah, there you go. I spent $150 to tell you guys that. And I hope it was helpful. Don't worry about Yeli too much. She's pretty decent, not amazing. And I think, like, there are lots of other people that fill her roles slightly better. She's, again, a classic kind of a jack of all trades type pick that, frankly, she's not going to out-damage Diting on single target. And she is just as good as Messiah, really, in PvP, as well as some of the other AoE specialists. So it's not like she does an amazing job in PvP compared to others. So there you go. Hopefully that was helpful, and I will see you soon.